So welcome to the admission process for the School of Inspired Leadership. The very process of going through the selection process for getting admitted to SOIL is a unique experience. After we receive your registration that you are interested in joining SOIL, you will be asked to submit basic information about yourself, your background, what you have been doing, your interests. And then you will be asked to take a very unique test which is called the caliper test. A caliper is an instrument which was designed more than 50 years back by an extremely well-known psychologist, Dr. Greenberg. Dr. Greenberg was blind at a young age, but he studied psychology and excelled in it. And he produced this outstanding instrument called caliper, which looks at the different traits of people. A caliper helps you to look at your leadership dimensions, which is about the way you influence others. So how assertive you are, as opposed to how aggressive you are. How much of risk you are willing to take, as compared to the amount of cautiousness. The strength that you have in terms of your ego drive, the amount of resilience you have to recover from setbacks in life, and the level of urgency you display in achieving tasks. These are all traits which help you to influence others, to become a leader of consequence. The second part of caliper looks at the way you relate to people, the level of empathy you have, how sociable you are in terms of wanting to mix with people, how gregarious you are in terms of the energy that you display, your ebullience, your optimism in the way you relate to people, your willingness to accommodate other people's ideas, and the amount of skepticism you carry inside while relating to people. These are all aspects which define your emotional intelligence. So the second part of caliper looks at that. The third part of caliper looks at your thinking ability. It begins with the way you look at complexity, what's called abstract reasoning. This is of course also measured by other tools like CAT or GMAT. But it also measures your ideational fluency, your idea orientation, your creativity, and the flexibility you have in your thinking. These aspects combine both the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And caliper is a unique instrument that gives you a picture of that. So even if you don't do extremely well on the quantitative side in a typical test like GMAT, for example, in caliper, if you are a highly creative person, that would be picked up. And we would then recognize that you may not be that analytical, but you are very creative, which makes us appreciate the strength you have on this aspect. And lastly, caliper looks at the way you personally organize yourself and manage your time. So the amount of emphasis you have in terms of self-structure. When you do your work, how do you define your priorities? How do you organize structure and method to your work? It also looks at your willingness to follow a laid down structure and process so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And this combined with again the level of urgency and a few other caliper traits help you to execute things well. So caliper is the only instrument we know which measures your execution ability, your thinking ability, your relationship ability, and your general leadership traits which help you to influence people. It's a very unique instrument. If you were to take the caliper test yourself, you will be asked to pay $200. Because we are using it in large numbers for many years now, we have a special pricing with caliper. And so even though you pay a small fraction of that as admission test fee for applying to soil, you get a report whose value is extremely high to you. It's not just value for money, but the insight it adds to you, to your knowledge of yourself, is amazing. This is the second part of our admission process. If your caliper report is such that we believe you have it in you to succeed in soil, and thereafter we then call you for what we call our talent appreciation process. This is a unique interview process in which one of our faculty members along with one of our industry consortium leaders participates. They spend 1 hour per candidate in looking at what are your strengths and what is your motivation for studying in soil and what's your long-term plan. And before the interview, you are also given some assignments to answer some important questions that is used as raw material in the interview. Along with this admission process of phase 1 of applying and paying your fees, phase 2 of caliper, and phase 3 of interview, between caliper and the interview, we want to make sure you get your references from people who have known your work and are willing to talk about your strengths and your areas of development. And also, we want you to think and thoughtfully define the purpose of your studies and write some essay which helps us to also look at the way you communicate, but also what you deeply value. These are essential before you appear for the interview. At the end of this whole process, which we use to identify your strengths, the reasons for you to study and develop further, we then present to you your report, which helps you to understand who you are. Irrespective of whether you are selected in soil or not, you get this report. And so, it's a very valuable learning experience for you to even experience the selection process at soil. I welcome you to the soil admission process, and I hope you will enjoy yourself in the process, and I hope at the end you will give us feedback on how this process impacted you. Thank you very much.